Welcome to the Success Sensei podcast for anyone interested in success, happiness, and balance. We'll teach you how to be a black belt at life. And now, your host, former professional fighter, multiple world champion, entrepreneur, and investor, Robert Devan.
Bowing in. This is Roundhouse Rob, the Success Sensei, helping you to improve your life one kick and punch at a time. And today I'm talking about how to get fighting fit. How to get fighting fit. I really should have done this podcast as one of the first ones. I'm surprised it's taken me so long to get to it now, considering it is one of my areas of expertise, fighting fitness. Back in the office recording this podcast, so I know I've done a couple on the move in the van and stationary in the van. So hopefully the sound is a little bit better. I'm still working on it. You know, these podcasts are very organic. They're like a process, a continuing process, and I'm actually using a different microphone this time as well. So all we can do is check it out and see, and hopefully it improves. But I guarantee you one thing is that the information contained in is definitely worth the listen. So I'm going to keep on continuing to try to improve these podcasts as much as I can. But I'm going to keep bringing good content all the time. And this one is particularly good one. How to get fighting fit. What is fighting fitness? Look, I'm totally biased. Obviously, I think fighting fitness is a superior form of fitness. I couldn't run a marathon. It's never been one of my big interests to run, and people that run marathons are definitely going to be aerobically very fit, but they're not going to be fighting fit. I've trained a lot of people who've run marathons, and 2 minutes of kickboxing on the mitts, punching and kicking on the mitts, and they're dead, and their confidence gets a serious knock because they're fit. They might have done marathons every year for the last decade or so, so they're very, very shocked that the fitness side of things is so hard. Same with people who are explosive or people who are strong, like bodybuilders and stuff like that. That they find that the functional strength part is very difficult. Their muscular endurance fatigues very early, and they find the aerobic side of it and also the maximum exertion, just the functional strength, very, very different. So I've trained a lot of athletes outside of their sport. Some of them have used it in their off-season time to build themselves up to prepare for the sports for in season. So I mean, obviously I'm very biased about fighting fitness being a superior form of fitness, and even within fighting circles we can train hard and then we actually go to a competition or we have a fight, or whether in the cage or in the area or fighting area or in the boxing ring and the kickboxing ring, and immediately you notice a difference in the competition with the adrenaline, with the nerves, with fear, with everything that you have to deal with. All your energy is completely zapped within seconds. It's zapped on the lead up to the fight. And that's when you realize that in order to be really fit, you have to train at a completely different level. What you think is a good level, what you think is fighting fitness, the second you start competing, it's very, very humbling. And you realize that you're actually not fit enough, that you aren't training at the output required for that level of extreme competition and extreme nerves. I did do a podcast on extreme nerves and dealing with extreme nerves and stress, so make sure you do have a listen over one of the previous ones, because it was a good one. Right, so fighting fitness. It's because it's aerobic and it's anaerobic. And that's the part that everybody finds hard. So if you're aerobically fit, you're going to find the explosiveness of the anaerobic strikes. You're going to find that part particularly difficult, especially the way not all strikes are maximum exertion, but there's quite a lot are maximum exertion, or at least you are focusing on hitting hard and power. If you're anaerobically fit, you're going to find the aerobic side of it hard. So even something simple like being on the balls of your feet constantly for several rounds, or for 10 rounds, or for 12 rounds, or for whatever number of rounds, the constant moving and head movement and on the balls of your feet, and the constant volume of punches besides the actual power, is very hard for someone who's anaerobically fit. So that's the aerobic side of things. All in all, while at the same time trying to keep a calm mind and think about strategy and withstanding getting struck by your opponent, and not giving into frustration and all the many things that you have to deal with from a fighting point of view. The great thing about fighting fitness, as opposed to being fit in the treadmill or being fit in the bike, is those things can be so boring. We have used them as, you know, as professional, as a professional fighter and as a professional athlete. Previously, I have used all of those, but to us, like a gym day would have been more like of a luxury day, more of a maintenance training day. It wouldn't have been a huge factor for the actual sport that we were involved in, whether it was MMA or kickboxing or karate. A gym day, or, you know, a day on weights and a day on treadmills was actually like a luxury. That was like nearly a passive rest day. Where I know a lot of people is the opposite way around. Like their gym is where they really hone their fitness and their strength, and then when they come to perform in martial arts or kickboxing or MMA or karate or whatever their chosen martial art, it can be very, very different. It mightn't transfer over. So basically what I'm trying to say is if you're training specifically to be fighting fit, you will need to concentrate on sport specific training. Right. I was talking to someone the other day, and they would definitely be what you would call a gym bunny. They're in the gym all the time, and they might do kickboxing twice a week, but they're in the gym 6 days a week. So the discussion I had with them, which left them kind of shocked, was that when I was competing within karate, the same. Do you know what? It was the same with kickboxing. It was the same with MMA. Every session that was at the gym, I understand strength and conditioning is a larger facet of training now, but too many strength and conditioning sessions, and every strength and conditioning session, every gym session was one less sport specific session. So instead of sparring or doing technique and doing fitness through the actual sport that you were getting ready for competition for, you were choosing to go to the gym, which wasn't sport specific. So it wasn't actually done that much. You didn't actually do that much of it. It's grand if you're off season, or fine if you're rounding out your training, or fine if you're burnt out and you just need to do a different type of workout, but it's not sports specific. For example, back in my karate days, sport karate days, so that's the one where it's like some people describe it as tag, where kicks would be a lot more important. So flexibility and speed of kicks, especially high kicks, machine gun kicks and double roundhouse kicks and spinning kicks, there would be a big emphasis on those because they were higher scoring. You could get even up to, I think, 5 points for a jumping spinning kick to the head and 3 points to the body. Different competitions are different, but you know what I mean. The emphasis was on kicking and kicking high and kicking off. And all of those years, you couldn't do any really weights on your legs. If you did that, you would do the opposite. You would shorten all your muscle fibers, and you were supposedly trying to elongate them through stretching. You would make your legs stronger, but a very a definite type of strength. So we did all our leg workouts, from hitting the bags, hitting the kick shields, hitting the focus mitts, and sparring and keeping your leg in the air for large periods of time. So our legs definitely were not weak, but they weren't gym strength trained. That would have been a hindrance. That would have done, you know, when you go to the gym and you do a hard day of squats, because you know all this thing about don't miss leg day, you do a hard day of squats, and that's cool, that's fine depending on what you're training it for, but for up to 2 days afterwards, it was going to definitely hinder your kicking performance. So if you were someone that practiced taekwondo, Olympic taekwondo, or someone that practiced sport karate and you needed to be using your kicks, or just American kickboxing where you kick above the waist and there's a lot more kicks, to do a lot of heavy squats on a consistent basis is going to do the opposite from what you actually need to do. So that could be a hindrance. I take it so far that even when it came to running, I mean, I wouldn't have done very much running to be fit for my sport. I would have always chosen sparring above running all the time and done volumes of rounds and volumes of sparring. Oh, of course I did run, but I often hear of probably boxers very, very often who are running 5 days a week, and you know they might only be boxing sparring 2 or 3 times a week. So if you're running more often than you're actually doing the sport that you're involved in, that mightn't be the way to go. I mean, you're involved in you think you're involved in one sport, the sport of boxing and the sport of kickboxing, but you're actually doing more hours and more time running. So that makes you a better runner than it does at your actual sport. So I know that might be a conflicting opinion to what other coaches would say, but even for several decades now, everybody will agree that training more sports specifically is very important. I mean, if you're training to fight and you're swimming 6 days a week, yeah, you'll be great at swimming. Yes, it will be beneficial for your sport, but it's not as valuable. An hour spent at your sport is more valuable than an hour spent at swimming. So you get my point about that. You need to be sports specific, and if it requires a lot of kicks, if you're involved in martial arts, or you're looking to increase your flexibility, you might have to taper down the leg days to once a week. If you like, when I've talked to people about this, hardcore gym junkies, they are horrified to hear that I'm actually saying miss leg day, and they can't bring themselves to think that they're not going to do a leg day. So just do it once a week. Don't hit your legs twice a week or 3 times a week. Give yourself enough time to be able to work on your kicks and to be able to stretch, but make it sports specific. So sports specific, whether you're involved in kickboxing, boxing, wrestling, MMA, jiu-jitsu, that's what you want to be spending out the majority of your time on. Any other type of training is just rounding out that training. It should just be complementary. But if, as I said, an hour at your actual sport is more valuable than an hour doing something else, unless you've been burnt out with your sport. Now, fighting fitness as well, like the type of training that it is, again, I am biased. I did in another life work as a personal trainer in a gym in Los Angeles years ago, where I didn't do martial arts. I literally just did personal training. So I understand that side of business. I've been involved in that side of business before, but I prefer martial arts. And the reason is you're not just a hamster on a wheel. Martial arts training, even though it's fitness training, it doesn't feel like fitness training. You are exercising your body, of course. There's a good bit of mind to it. You are exercising your mind. It's functional. So it's functional strength. It's strength that can be used every day. It's not artificial. And it's got obviously self-defense. It can have sporting aspects if you choose. It's not all about the sport. It can have sporting aspects if you choose. And obviously it can have self-defense aspects. So there's a little more to it than just getting on the spinning bike or getting on the treadmill and focusing literally just on aesthetic, external appearance type of training. That can only keep you motivated for so long. If literally appearance is your only goal, it's going to be very hard to sustain long-term consistent training. It has to be more than just appearance. And that's why I also think fighting fitness is a unique type of fitness and a higher level of fitness, because it embodies much more than just the benefits of looking better. There's the feeling better, it's the self-defense, it's the actual functional strength, it's the feeling of being fit but strong at the same time. So as I said at the very start, I'm very biased. So I mean, if other sports people are listening to this, and you guys are going to be biased regarding your sport, so I totally understand. But I mean, I'm coming from a fighting background, so that's what I know and that's what I can talk about. The next thing we're going to get into is sparring or not. Do you have to spar to be a good martial artist? Do you have to spar to be a good kickboxer? Do you have to spar to be good at MMA? It all depends on your goals. If you're going to be a fighter, you're going to have sparring experience, and quite a lot of sparring experience. But this is where it kind of balances out. CTE is a big one. I can't remember what it stands for. CTE. I've been told loads of times, and I can't remember. But it's not good. It's the brain damage. It's the concussion. It's all that kind of stuff that you can get from consistent hard sparring. Now, I do think that is a big issue, and it's quite all right not to be involved in sparring if you're not involved in competition. And even people that are heavily involved in competition have started to change their mind regarding sparring. So I have heard many a story about Thai boxers in Thailand not actually engaging in sparring very much. Their actual fights are their sparring. That when you rely on your actual competitive fighting to be putting food on the table, you cannot risk getting injured in training. So yeah, they'll do plenty of pad work, tie shields, plenty of one-to-one sparring drills, but they might the actual hard competitive sparring in the gym is extremely limited, if it even happens at all in certain circles. And that makes sense to me. That's why, I mean, you'll see Thai boxers with a massive amount of fights, 100 fights, a massive amount of competitive fights, because they're not risking it. And it's smart. That to me is smart. Then there's some prominent MMA fighters. Like one example would be Robbie Lawler, who hasn't engaged in sparring, or said in an interview he hasn't engaged in hard competitive sparring or any kind of gym sparring because of the risk of injury, specifically due to all the injuries that you get. And now keep in mind, it's not, you can have some hard competitive fights, but what people don't see is the 8 or the 12-week training camp leading up to that fight. And all of us fighters, I've had 6 professional fights, but I've probably had 12 or more training camps for fights that actually didn't occur due to people being injured or just falling through, or the promotion not going ahead or whatever. So it's the training camps that can cause a lot of the damage. If you're heavy sparring consistently for 8 to 12 weeks per training camp, yes, you'll sustain damage on the day of the competition, but it's the constant knocks that are causing the damage. So hard sparring, does it have its place? Yes, but to me it does, but in balance, and certainly not on a regular basis. Flow sparring, medium sparring, even light sparring, they all have their place, and they should be staggered out so that you're not sustaining injuries. Yeah, you can be very, very tough for a short period of time through hard sparring, but you're going to sustain injuries which are going to be a threat to your long-term training or your long-term competing. If you want to compete, I started competing at the age of 13, and just a few years ago I had my last fight. So I mean, we're over I can't do the maths on the spot, but it's definitely over 20 years. That still makes me fairly young in my calculations. So it's a good bit over 20 years. Well, not a good bit, but it's a few years over 20 years I was competing for. And I do think the reason for that is I had really good training partners. So I had some tough training camps. I've managed to spar and fight with some of the toughest names in the sports in the world, at the highest level, which was a serious honour. And I did get I got my fair share of knocks. I got my fair share of concussions and being blacked out standing on my feet. Of course I did. But in my own training circles, I always made sure I had training partners that I had the luxury of being able to practice my weaknesses on, and they wouldn't absolutely crucify me for it. If you're just sparring in a heightened competitive environment all the time, you will not practice new stuff. You won't you won't try anything new. You won't practice your bad side if you have a bad side. You won't practice a technique that needs work on. You're just going to stick with what you know, and you're going to be tense, and you're going to be very limited in your scope of technique and things that your strategy that you're going to try. So practicing with people who give you the freedom to be able to do that, and not completely pushovers, that's not what I'm talking about, but even just a good strong enough medium pace, stuff that the whole thing is that's going to hurt. It's still going to hurt, but it's not going to cause injury. Now that's, if you can get to that level, you're doing well. So you're not actually injuring your opponent, but you are still hurting your opponent. So, your training partner. I shouldn't call training partners opponents. So I know I've gone off a good bit now in sparring and stuff like that, but it's not all about sparring. I would say 90% of people that actually train with me have no interest in sparring. And if they were forced to do sparring, they wouldn't train with me. So can you be fighting fit without sparring? Of course you can. Yes, you can. Will you be at the same level, in competition that somebody that does spar? No, but if your emphasis isn't on competition, if your emphasis is on being fighting fit and be capable of it, then you can do a hell of a lot without sparring and really minimize any injuries or potential injuries. Because I mean, injuries and things like that are going to happen through your normal training. So without accelerating your statistics by impactful sparring, so there's no harm. I don't have an issue with you if you're a non-competitor and you're not doing any sparring. It's quite all right with me. So fire away. How do you do a routine? Well, you can do a routine. Again, you should be in a martial arts club. So find a martial arts club that you like. Don't just try to self-train, because I think that's a lot of people that do, and they're experts via YouTube. So YouTube is a really handy tool, supplementary. I mean, back in the day, we used to use VHS tapes and see whatever information we could glean off it and watch them over and over again until they were worn out. So you can do that with YouTube, but we were in clubs, we were getting taught, we did have instructors. So to be 100%, and a lot of people nowadays like to claim that they were 100% self-trained. I don't know why that is. They as if they didn't have any instructors, as if they were, they're just pure geniuses and managed to train themselves up from nothingness. And I don't understand how a lot of people actually think that's admirable, because years ago, if you claimed to never have had an instructor, you would have been a fraud. Whereas now it seems to be applauded. Oh, well done, he trained himself, he didn't have an instructor. All because you don't want to give your previous instructors any kind of recognition, for fear that people will join their clubs or train with them instead of you. It's just stupid. Maybe that's another podcast. But where was I? The routines. Yeah. So you should be in a martial arts club, but training at home, you can actually do a lot of really productive, good training at home, or if you have space in the gym, and you don't need a lot of equipment. So set a timer on your phone or use a clock and do 2-minute rounds. Do 3-minute rounds if you want to train a little bit more like professional amateurs, or do 2-minute rounds. So you can start off nice and easy. You can do a round of shadowboxing. And next round, you can throw in a strength round. You can try to do a minute or 2 minutes of press-ups if you like, and stagger them out in a way that you can actually sustain it for 2 minutes. So take your time, in other words, and breathe. Next round could be a round of just kicking. Next round could be sit-ups or abdominal exercises, crunches. Next round could be kickboxing, so punches and kicks and combinations. Next round could be squats. So you see the way I'm kind of staggering it? Now, this is a really simplistic way of doing it. You're going to make up, when you have a bit of paper and a pen, you're going to make up better routines yourself than the one I'm just listing now. Next round could be MMA, or it could be your kickboxing and putting in low kicks and elbows and knees. You can stick in, I don't know what martial arts that you're practicing or you're interested in, but you can stick in your back fists, you can stick in hammer fist, heel palms, you can make it a self-defense round. You've that many options. You can repeat the same rounds, or you can just focus on a different thing, like a little bit more power or a little bit more fluidity or head movement or footwork. You can stagger your rounds. They can be all cardio rounds, or they can be cardio strength. It's totally up to you. Set out your routine, do as many as you can. A 20-minute workout is highly valuable. Don't underestimate a 20-minute workout. People think because they don't have an hour and a half or 2 hours that it's not enough time. All our classes in my gym are an hour long, and we often get calls on the phone that it's only an hour. My gym, we used to train for 3 hours. But it's an hour of actual full training, not waffling, not talking, not dossing. It's an actual hour of, you've bowed in, you start, maximum output as best you can for 60 minutes, you bow out, see you later, job done, not waffling or otherwise. Time spent in the gym is not time spent training. So 20 minutes of actual solid training is extremely valuable, especially if that was done up to 2 to 3 times a week, or to supplement the training that you're doing. You could chuck in skipping, you can chuck in anything you like. Chuck in, as I said, a self-defense round. You can make it a pure round of just pure technique, coming up with different combinations or different techniques. The world is your oyster, so design your own technique. Make sure as well that you do include flexibility. So you're covering all the areas. You've got your cardio, you've got your strength, upper body and lower body. Now I know you might say, hang on, he said a round of squats. Just body weight squats and lunges. Nothing that's going to stiffen up your legs so bad that it's going to inhibit your flexibility. And make sure that before and at the end you do plenty of flexibility. So that's how you set out a routine. It doesn't have to be rocket science. That will bring you on in leaps and bounds. I guarantee you that if you're training with a coach, if you're training with an instructor, and you're doing your own practice at home, they will notice that you're improving. You mightn't see it yourself, but I guarantee you they will see that you've been doing homework and you've been doing home training. And then, as I said, look at whatever resources. Look at YouTube, read some books, wherever you like to get your information from, our techniques, and incorporate it into your training. You know, a belief that I have is that everybody has natural fighting ability. That's a belief I've always had. This is why I kind of prefer the Western martial arts more than the Eastern martial arts. So with Eastern martial arts, I mean, that's why I started. I got a black belt in karate first. I actually did kung fu for years before I even did that. So I did the Eastern martial arts before I ever turned more Western with kickboxing and MMA. And they were super. They were an absolutely amazing grounding. So I'm not talking bad about them. But the philosophy of the kickboxing, or certainly my kickboxing club, is that the style conforms to the individual. It's not about the individual conforming to the style. And that makes a big difference, because we believe that everyone has natural fighting ability, and it's all about, well, accessing it, because I think modern society can knock natural fighting ability out of you. So that's a discussion for another day. But we think that everyone has natural fighting ability, and you bolt on the techniques and you bolt on the training. And you continue to make it more natural. So there's not a complete difference between training or doing, like, this is a thing that people would talk about all the time. They're doing their stuff on the bag and on the mitts, and they were training hard, and then they get to sparring and it all goes out the window. So we don't want that to kind of happen. So what you do is you try to access your own natural fighting ability and simply add on bolt on moves and bolt on techniques and bolt on the training drills. But accessing your own natural fighting ability, it is there. We're hardwired since we were cave people to be able to defend ourselves. Like, our whole adrenaline system and everything is designed for us to be able to survive and fight if we have to, fight or flight or run away or whatever. So have faith that you do have your own natural fighting ability, and it's just about accessing it, bringing it out, let it grow, let it evolve, and adding on the things that you need to add on. So I do need to say that you can't train your way out of a bad diet. So nutrition is important. Like, if you're just trying to do your fighting fitness and you're not actually watching what you eat, you can't really catch up with yourself. So diet and proper nutrition is very, very important to get the most out of your fighting fitness. So I wish you all the best with your fighting fit training. I would love to hear how people get on. Message me, subscribe, send me a message in any shape or form, send me an email. Whatever way you can contact me, I'd love to hear how you get on with your own training. Thank you for listening. I'm Roundhouse Rob, the Success Sensei. Life is a fight you can enjoy and win. Bowing out.
This has been the Success Sensei, fighting the winning fight. So add us, subscribe, like, and comment. Keep those hands up and keep moving forward.